Why does Universal hate their product so much? Why do they hate their monster films? Seriously. Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron.
Not Michelle.
And this is our post-geek out reaction for Dracula Untold. Untold, no one wanted to hear it. No one went to go and see it. We're talking about, 2-3 years after it came out. That's because this is part of our 31 days of THORGIWEEN, in which for 31 days we are going to be doing either reviews or post-geek out reactions for spooky, scary, funny, whatever you want to call it. Anything relating to Halloween. And earlier this year, I talked about the Mummy film, which is Universal's latest attempt to reboot their monster universe. This was the attempt right before it, and I had not seen this because I heard it was stupid. And it is, but we decided to watch it because, like I said, we need to watch something every single day for Halloween. Holy cow, this one was dumb.
I remember, in the beginning, you're like, oh, this isn't so bad.
Yeah.
And then it's when he started getting his vampire power, it's like, oh, now it's stupid.
Up until the point where he got his powers, I had heard everybody talking about how bad this was, but up until the point where he got his powers, I was like, this actually isn't that bad. I mean, it's not great. It's just kind of bland. But, I mean, I don't know why so many people would hate on something that's bland. Bland, typically people would go 50-50 on. But, I mean, people were overwhelmingly negative on this. I wonder why it got so many bad reviews and reactions. And, oh, this suddenly got real stupid. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into this thing. Basically, this is meant to be the origin story of Dracula, of Vlad the Impaler, and how Vlad the Impaler became Dracula, and
Became a vampire.
no, he became Dracula, but the vampire came way later. That's in the second film. Yeah, it's the story of how he became a vampire, which I gotta admit, one of the reasons why I was being pretty positive on this thing at the beginning was because as I was watching this, there comes that moment in which he goes in this cave and he and his men start getting attacked by this thing, and that's when it suddenly hit me. I actually don't know the origin of Dracula. Pretty much in every single incarnation of Dracula that we've ever seen, he was just a vampire already. Nobody knows how long he's been around. Nobody knows when he turned. We all know from the real world that he was based on real-world figure Vlad the Impaler, but that's not how he actually came to be in the stories. That's just the character he was based on in the real world. So as I was watching that was one of the reasons I was actually kind of like, I'm actually kind of positive on this, simply because I was thinking to myself, oh my god, what is his origin? I've never heard this before. I don't know what this could be. You could do so many things. And Universal said, oh, we know what we're doing. We're creating a superhero film.
Yeah, it's pretty much
damn it. Stop it. Dad, no. Sit. I really want to know if anybody's dog just sat while I was doing that. Yeah, when I was talking about the Mummy film, which is their current attempt to do their whole universe thing, which tanked here in America, but it did very well in, I think it was Korea. In South Korea, it did very well. I don't know if it did very well in China, because that's going to be the defining one. But here in America, it absolutely tanked. So I don't know if they've already gone ahead and scrapped their plans again, because they were leaning into this current dark universe thing real heavily. They had 5 movies already cast, already written out and ready to go. And by written out, I mean it was probably on a cocktail napkin. Because they are desperate to jump on that Marvel bandwagon. They are desperate to get a universe together. And I was like, dude, I've said many times, you want to get a universe of all your monsters together? Awesome, I'm for it. I am down for that. You are the guys who created the cinematic universe. The Universal monster films were the original cinematic universe. You want to come back in here and go, hey man, we started this, we're going to show you how it's done. Fine, great, I'm on it. But the Universal monsters aren't fucking superheroes. No. Stop making them superheroes. The Mummy is okay, the Mummy was a villain in that film, but at the end of that thing, Tom Cruise gains the mummy powers, and now he's going off into the world, and oh god, you're going to be a hero. And he's the mummy ends with them going, sometimes what the world really needs is monsters.
And that's pretty much what they said in this movie.
They do the exact same shit in this film.
It's like...
There's a moment, Vlad the Impaler, the reason why Dracula was based on Vlad the Impaler is because Vlad the Impaler, like, murdered thousands. He was a real world monster.
Mm-hmm.
He was just a sociopathic warrior just going around beheading people and putting them on spikes. They have a moment in here in which he is talking to the vampire who is going to give him his vampire powers. And he goes, how many have you killed? And he goes, thousands. And he goes, so then what would they say about you? You called me a monster, but why? But look at what you've done. And he just says, I killed men to spare others. For every one who I stuck on a pike, I saved 100. Sometimes a monster is what's needed to be a hero. Or it was like something like, sometimes a hero is a monster. And I'm like,
sometimes you don't need heroes, sometimes you just need a monster.
Something like that.
Something along those lines.
They specifically said, something hero, something monster. I'm like, get the fuck out of here with this shit. Like, that was the moment I just lost it. Because like I said, up until that point, alright, you gave him the cute kid who we need to protect, although that kid wasn't that cute. That's one of those times where you have a child actor who is like 15 and they're trying to make them seem like they're 8. And it's like, no, this kid is like teenager at this point. This kid should be like, yeah, I'm ready to go out there and fight, father. But instead he's like, no, father. Oh, father, the bad men going to come and take me away. It's like, you're old enough, you could actually probably fight one of these guys if they came for you. It makes you seem really pansy-ish. But then he's like, he's got his son who he cares about and his wife who he loves, and he's going to do anything to protect them, and everybody in the kingdom loves him. He's such a benevolent leader. It's like, dude, you were known for murdering thousands of people. Even in the continuity of this film, you've already established this, but everybody's like, oh, Vlad, yes, he's our ruler. He's the one who's going to look after us and make sure we're all okay. Like, all right, Jesus. Okay, but I could swallow that. I was like, fine, I'll let that go. But it was the moment when he had to go and negotiate with the old vampire dude, and he just tells him, sometimes a hero has to be a monster. That's what it was, Jesus. Sometimes a hero has to be a monster. I was like, get the fuck out. Shut up.
And that was when everything went to shit for you.
It spiraled down after that. Because after that, what basically happens is that the Turks have told Vlad, because Vlad, they say that when he was a kid, he was sold to the Turks, and he was basically whipped and beaten until he was turned into this big, massive soldier. He became their best soldier, and now the Turks have returned to him and said, hey, that's great. We're going to take 1,000 of your kids, 1,000 kids from your village, and they're going to become our soldiers, just like you were, including your son. They have to come too. And that's when he rebels against them, and he's like, I can't destroy them. But earlier in this film, they went into a cave and found this monster that was attacking, and he goes, whatever's in there kills Turks. So he goes back in there, and he confronts this vampire, and the old vampire, he's got white skin and is really pale, and made me almost wonder if he was supposed to be like Nosferatu.
Yeah, he did definitely have like a Nosferatu vibe to him.
Yeah, but not enough of one.
Yeah, it's like...
So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I don't quite know what you're going for with this.
Like, Nosferatu is like more attractive brother
he
or
looked
something.
like, he looked like this super obscure Spider-Man villain from the 90s, Screen, something like that, but he was basically just a dude in a big black robe with a white stone face. And I was like, that's kind of what he was going for with this. And I was like, is this supposed to be like a reference to like some like old-timey thing that I'm not getting here? Because it's kind of like, it feels like they didn't go far enough with him. Mm-hmm. I mean, this dude's been living in a cave because he's basically doomed to, he can't leave the cave. He explains there's some kind of a curse that was placed on him that keeps him in the cave unless he can pass this curse on to someone else. But I was like, okay, if you've been living in a cave, you need... Nosferatu looked like a rat because he was like all walled up and like a vermin-ish creature. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you should be going for with this guy, but instead it's like, yeah, just a dude in a black robe and white face. But he's talking to the vampire when he goes back in there, and the vampire squeezes some of his own blood out into his skull and hands it to him and goes, if you drink my blood, then for 3 days you will have my powers. But if you succumb to the temptation to drink human blood within those 3 days, you will be like me forever. And then I will be free to go out into the world and seek revenge on the one who did this for me. Which, if I had been watching this at the time, I wouldn't have thought anything. But now with The Mummy out, and it's become super obvious that they have been trying to reboot like shared universe things and get that going, I would kind of have looked. Now knowing that, I look at that moment and I'm just like, dude, for real? This is your first film. This is the problem that so many people are having. You don't stop in your first film to advertise future films. You want to do that with a post-credit stinger? Awesome, because then that's a surprise. And if you make a piece of shit film and you look at that and you go, ooh, this isn't going to work out, you can cut out that piece there at the end before it hits theaters. You can put it on the DVD release if audiences love it and it's a surprise. But yeah, so they stop in the middle of the film to go like, oh, this guy now has a backstory that's going to play out in another film. So it's like, all right, whatever. But I will admit, I actually kind of dug the exchange between him and Vlad. Aside from that whole, it takes a hero to be a monster, or it takes a monster to be a hero. Aside from that one moment, I actually think the old vampire dude was pretty darn good in this film. I actually really dug him in this. But he drinks the blood, falls asleep, then wakes up outside, and he discovers that his ring that his wife gave him, it's silver, it's now burning him, so he has to take that off, and he like ties it around a piece of string and puts it around his neck. Which that never really came back. I don't remember him ever looking at that ring again or touching it or anything like that.
Well, there was that one scene in the tent, and his apparently he was sleeping.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got burned because he was sleeping on the ring, and I was like, take it the fuck off when you go to bed, you idiot.
Or keep a shirt on. Because once he got his vampire powers, all the scars he got when he was whipped as a kid were healed, and his wife noticed that. So it's like...
Seems like at that point you should mention what the fuck is up.
Yeah, and he did eventually, but it's like, you know, if you wanted to keep that a secret, you probably should have just left your shirt on.
Seriously, he gets back there, and he just instantly goes to town on her. Like, they just are slamming each other into the bed. And it's like, dude, you're trying to escape to save the life of your son. You just have to hang on for 3 days. Would it kill you to, for one of those 3 days, just tell your wife, not now, honey, I'm not in the mood? God. Okay. But yeah, that was when this got terrible for me. Not even bad. This gets terrible at that point.
Like, literally, like, the moment he wakes up and he tries to, like, sit up, his hand starts crushing the rock he was on, and it's like wow,
it looks like he is dipping his hand into, like, that green foam stuff that you buy at the flower shop to stick flowers into. Like, go to a Michael's and find that green foam stuff that they have, stick your hand on it, and that is what, well, actually don't do that because then you would damage it and you'd have to pay for it. But
like kinetic sand.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like crunch, crunch, and it's like, it doesn't, it looks like that rock was hollow on the inside. Like, rocks still have mass, and mass has to go somewhere. He presses into this thing, and the rock concaves into itself. It's like, so the rock was empty inside?
Like, it makes more sense if he, like, made, like, an actual, like, crack in the rock with his
exactly.
hand,
That would make sense. But, so it's like, okay, well, that's not good.
Well,
and then he starts running to the battlefield, and he starts, like, leaping and turning into bats when he leaps, and he looks around like, oh. Well, I was like, fuck this superhero origin crap. Like, this is exactly the Spider-Man just learned he can crawl on walls moment.
Yeah.
The moment he learned he can leap from one building, he can leap further, and he can swing on webs. Oh my goodness, this is exactly that scene. You get it in every superhero origin film. The moment where they find out they have powers and they're like, oh, how do these things work? Oh my god, it is so just trying to be a superhero film at that point.
And like, it's really ridiculous too. Like, apparently he can, like, see through clouds and the sky and see
his
stars.
Powers are never fucking defined. Because, like, they tell him, you can see through the eyes of all of nature. You can see through the eyes of all the creatures in the world. And then he looks up in the sky, and he sees through the clouds, and he sees into space. And I was like, what fucking animal is that? What bat is flying that high? Wouldn't that bat freeze if it went up that high? Like, how do you see that? Like, literally, his powers change nonstop. Like, at the end of this film, he gets Thor powers. He literally can summon lightning storms at the end of this film. That's never explained.
No, it's not Thor powers, it's storm powers. Apparently he can change the weather. Like, there was, like, lightning, and apparently he can make the clouds go away or
Yeah,
some
he was able
shit
to part
like
the
that.
clouds at the end. It's like, but another thing I have to point out right now is that the moment that he wakes up there in this river after he gets his powers, it starts one of the worst things about this film. This film, which heavily revolves around day and night, can't go out in the day, can only go out at night. As soon as he wakes up with his powers, they realize we don't have time to film all of this at night. There are so many god-awful day for night shots in here.
And
there's almost every single shot at night in this film is in the middle of the day, and they just put a filter on top of it, and it's like, dude, you're not fooling anyone.
Like, it's either cloudy out or it's a day for night shot, and that's really frustrating because you can't tell what time of day it is or how much time has passed.
And considering that 3 days
Yeah.
is a huge thing about the plot of this, about will he be able to make this stuff happen before the end of 3 days? Can he stop this army before the end of 3 days? When you have no idea when a full day has passed, you've already fucked up.
Yeah, and then there would be just parts where, like, the sun happens to be up. It's like, oh, I better watch out for sunlight, and...
Oh, God. Sometimes,
And
but then there are other moments in which they're just like, yeah, he's in the sun, he's fine. It doesn't matter. Just don't question it. Don't question it. It's fine. I mean, there's literally a moment in this film where he goes out. He's in this like monastery, like this holy place.
Yeah.
That's where he's trying to take his family to get them to escape. And this monk comes in, and he's just like, the only weakness that vampires have is pure silver and sunlight. And all I could think was, he literally just showed up. No one has said anything about his powers. He hasn't shown any powers. How the fuck do you instantly know he's a vampire? But he goes in there and he slices down a curtain, and Vlad instantly starts like screaming and like starts dissolving in there. So they set the building on fire.
Which, by the way, was occupied by several other monks.
Yeah, it was like, that building was full when they set that thing on fire. How many people did they murder with that? And he then, like 2 seconds later, walks out of this burning building and starts screaming at them right in the middle of this city square. And I was like, the sun is out. You literally established 2 minutes ago the sun is out and it's burning you. Walks out of the building and just instantly just starts going, how dare you? You want to see a monster? I'll show you a monster. It's like, you should be in flames right now. The sun should just be erupting you. Just flames on the side of my face. That's all that this should be right now.
Like, you should have just been dead, and that's where the movie would have ended if it weren't for all the bullshit.
But I mean, like, it will get, like, kind of cloudy looking at scenes like that. And I'm like, I honestly think that they just want us to think a cloud moved in.
Yeah.
Without showing us the cloud. But it's not.
Well, there was the cloud of smoke that arose from the fire, but I don't know if that really counts.
Oh, God. Yeah, they did show that for like a second.
Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, this is our excuse.
That's you show for like 2 seconds smoke coming out of this building. And, like, you expect me to, like, instantly be able to go, oh, clearly that covered up all the sunlight. The fuck out of here with this. Yeah, it's one of those weird things where it's like, okay, so does it have to be direct sunlight? Like, there are no fucking rules established for this.
That's the thing.
At all. There's no rules established for what his powers are. Like, the master vampire guy tells him what his powers are, tells him everything that he can do, and then he proceeds to do extra stuff that was not explained by this. And also, like, his weaknesses. When he first encounters this vampire, he has to go to a holy place. So, like, a monk, he has to go to a monk, and the monk has to go, what it sounds like you encountered. It sounds like a vampire. And then he explains to him what a vampire is, so it's clear that this is not a common thing that people know. But then, towards the end of this, when he goes up against the big bad boss, he's got a room full of silver, just silver coins everywhere. It's like, I know that silver is your only weakness, and if I stab you with this stake through the heart, and I was like, so you know what vampires are? Also, follow-up question, how the fuck do you know he's a vampire? You just found out that he, like, can do all this stuff a couple minutes ago. That's it, just like a couple minutes ago when this battle erupted, and you've already got all this prepared for him. It's, oh my god, this film just does not care about like establishing any kind of rules or anything. It's just like, fuck it, just throw it in there, just go, just do it.
And there was like when his wife fell off the building and
god.
he tried to fly to her, but apparently
you want to talk about not establishing rules? Oh my god, this is all the things I mentioned earlier about not establishing rules, that has to do with rules about the story, about the way that their powers work. They fucking break the rules of gravity on this one, because there is a moment in which it's after he goes into the big final battle with the entire giant army and they're trying to fight them off, but then his wife and her son are up there, and two guys come up there to kidnap them, and they're at the top of this massive high mountain. Like the monastery they were taking them to is at the top of a huge mountain. He's out there fighting them, and then she kind of gets knocked off the cliff, and she is holding on like, no.
It's like Mufasa in the stampede scene.
While their child gets taken away, that fucking kid, 90% of all his scenes are nothing more than, no, father, no, because he's like fucking Ashley in Resident Evil 4. Every 5 seconds someone comes up, picks him up, and just starts taking him away. No,
his father.
Or his dad himself goes, here, go over to this person while I fight. No, father, no.
It's like, here, take my son. Oh, you're dead. Now I have to go rescue my son.
Everybody whose job it was to watch after this kid dies. Including the mom. Too soon. So the mom is up there hanging from this thing when Dracula comes up there, and he can turn to bats. And it's been established, he goes insanely fast when he's bats. And then she falls off this thing. By the way, the moment she falls off this thing, the sun starts coming out. So it's like, okay, he's going to jump to reach for her, and the sun will start burning him, so he can't get to her. Right. That's what's going on. Okay, I see what you're going to do here, film. No, the sun starts coming out, and then it plays into nothing, because he literally dives over with the sunlight shining on him, and there's no like burning, his skin isn't coming off like normal, there's no effect from the sun at all. And he starts flying after her, full on bat mode, and she's going straight down, and you see him coming after her, full on in bat mode, and they're going at the exact same speed, and all I could think was, if something is falling, but something else is flying in that same direction, it's physically fucking impossible for the thing flying in that direction to go the same speed as the thing falling in that direction. The thing falling has gravity working for it. The thing flying in that direction has gravity and its own flight going for it.
It has propulsion.
It has its own propulsion pushing it in that direction. It would literally, if you want to say they're going the same speed, it would be like saying someone running will go at the same speed as someone standing still. It's, oh my god. And he goes the way down and never, like the whole way down.
Never catches up.
It is a Spider-Man Gwen Stacy moment.
Yeah, there. It is.
It really is. And then she falls 500 feet at the minimum and smashes into rocks.
She's okay.
No blood or anything. Like, she would be liquefied. But instead, she's just there, oh no, Vlad. And he's been told, you can't suck and drink blood for 3 days. If you don't suck blood for 3 days, you will return to being human. But if you drink blood in that time, that's it. You're like this forever, for all eternity. And she knows these rules. But she says to him, there's still time. You can still save our son. Drink my blood. And all I could think was, he became a vampire at like the beginning of a night cycle. We've seen one night go by. This was the end of the second night. He still has until the end of this day before his powers go away. She honestly didn't think that he could get his power. She honestly didn't think he could get their child back by the end of the day. So she just went, fuck it, curse yourself forever. This is the worst way for the wife to go out ever. The way the wife went out was, I'm going to condemn you to eternal damnation, even though you still got a good 12 hours to save our kid.
Yeah, but it's 12 hours in daylight. Ugh, or maybe it's a cloudy day and he'll be able to do it because...
That's the other thing. The sun came out. I have to point out, He's standing there in pure sunlight with his wife. Not on fire, not nothing. The sun doesn't hurt him at all in this scene. But the scene after this, he has to go and save his child from the enemy's camp. And just clouds and thunderstorms come up out of nowhere. And it becomes clear. He's doing that. He's blocking out the sun because he can now control the weather. I was like, when the fuck did that power come in? Like, I'm sorry, vampires can now just control the weather? Because if they could, the whole sunlight thing isn't really a problem for them. Suddenly, that's not an issue anymore. Oh my god, this film just doesn't... I've never seen a film that just gave a shit about its own rules less.
Oh yeah, and the back controlling thing too.
Oh. Okay, so he goes up to the top of this monastery when the giant army is approaching, when it's about to be the big final showdown. He sees all these bats in the belfry. And he starts like doing like this stuff to them, and they start reacting to him. And then he, Aquaman style, summons out an army of bats from all across the world, all over the countryside. You see bats flying up to them. And the thing is, the army is approaching, and the bats are flying over their head. The army has to see this. They have to see this happening.
They see it, but they don't do anything about it.
They just keep walking forward.
It's like, yep, nothing suspicious here. Doop-de-doop-de-doop.
And there is a hurricane, a tornado of bats swirling around this thing. The next sci-fi original movie, Bat-nado, swirling around this thing. And then he is there, like, doing this stuff to it. Like, he is trying to, like... It's some, like, Fantasia shit. Like, it's like, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, like...
Like Night on Bald Mountain.
That's it, yeah, that's what I was trying to remember. It's like, man, this is the worst version of Night on... what was it called?
Night on Bald Mountain.
Bald Mountain, yeah. I love that fucking bit, but I always forget its name. But yeah, it kind of reminded me of that, except if somebody was, like, you know, conducting it. But yeah, it's just a swirling tornado of bats. Yeah, the army's just marching. They don't care. And then he summons out the bats to come down like a giant hand.
Yes.
The bats literally form into a giant hand that comes down, and it bashes into them. And you see the army just keeps walking. No one in the army reacts to the bats coming down to them until the moment they get hit. And I mean the second they get hit, because the bats start forming a wave that goes through the army, just whipping them all up. And then after it's whipped through about 50 of them and keeps going, it then cuts to the soldiers in line, and you see them continuing to march. It's like a back shot. So you see them marching towards the wave. You see guys flying up in front of them, and they're still just marching. They literally are not reacting to this at all until they get hit and go, "Whoa!" It's like, did no one, like, I can't imagine it would have taken you that much longer to tell these extras, oh, by the way, look freaked out for 5 seconds. Like, is this some weird, like, union rule? Like, you weren't willing to pay them enough to show their faces? Like, was an extra amount of emoting going to cost you that much more? It is so insanely insulting how little they gave a shit about this. Like, no one said, you know what, let's do a second take. Like, none of that in here.
I think all the soldiers were just CGI, and it's like, oh, I'm too lazy to give every one of them their own reaction, so they're just gonna keep on marching.
But that's the thing, if they were all CGI, that'd be more expensive and more time consuming
just copy and paste.
Then literally just going, give me five extras for a day, and we're just gonna shoot like 20 different shots of them going, oh, like that. Like, that would have been so much cheaper and quicker and easier.
But then the bats turn into a giant fist.
That's the best part. There's a moment he gets out there and he is like fighting the bats down at him, like he's shooting the bats at him, and then he grabs his fist, raises up, and then the bats all form around into a giant fist, comes down, and he smashes his fist into the ground, and you see him crack the ground under him, and then the bats slam into the ground. And I was like, okay, that looks impressive until the moment you realize they're still teeny tiny little
they're the little bats.
And you just slam them all into the fucking ground. You didn't hurt that army at all. You literally just killed all your bats.
Yeah,
you just forced all those bats to head dive into the earth.
Yeah, you just cover those soldiers in bat guts. That's really all you did.
And I mean, it's a giant fist, so it's all going straight down. So all you did was just go, just make a giant mountain of dead bats. That's it. Oh my god, like seriously, this is one of those movies where it's like, I am fine with those movies where it's like, just turn your brain off. you can't turn your brain off enough to enjoy this film.
It's like apparently the ground that the ground in Transylvania is very breakable.
I don't even know where the fuck they are in this thing, because like they leave Transylvania and then go to this monastery thing, and all I could think was, why they leave Transylvania after he fought off the first wave of these guys and he kicked all their asses by himself, and all I could think was, why the fuck do you have to leave? You literally just proved you, one man, can now take on an entire army. How many of their guys could they now bring that you would not be able to continue fighting each of them off? Why do you now have to take your family and all your citizens and the rest of your army and leave the place that you all know best, the place that you spent building up walls to defend yourself, and you have all your weapons there, to go to a monastery way the fudge away from you, way up in the mountains, where he's like, oh yeah, well, cannon fire can't reach that. It's like, yeah, but now you can't escape. Now there's nowhere else for you to go. Your citizens don't know anything about this place. Now all you have is monks to fight them off with you. It's like, you literally took out all these guys by yourself, which, that's another problem I have. The very first time he goes into battle, he instantly knows how all his powers work. Like, there is no, like, trial and error on this. Like, it's literally just him charging in there, and he is, like, doing bat kung fu. Like, he is just turning into bats, spiraling around, and then punching guys, then spiraling around and getting the bats and punching them again. It really does make you not want to think about any of it, but like, you can't help it.
You compare him learning his powers to like Spider-Man. I was like, even Spider-Man had more time to establish and learn his powers.
He had to figure shit out. All superheroes need that moment in which they're like, oh shoot, how strong am I? Oh wow. He literally like learned all this running home. Yeah. That is it. Just chopping that wind. That was it. That's all he needed. That's the Tom Cruise method. That's why Tom Cruise is the new monster. Oh, it's so... And this film, again, it kind of takes me off that in the middle of this thing, they try and tease the next film, but at the end of it, it all comes back with a little stinger about what the next one was supposed to be. And it's like, it's almost laughable knowing, yeah, you ain't getting anything. There's no more of this. Like, it opens up with him, like, it ends with him in the modern world, and he meets this girl at, like, a street fair, and she goes, I'm Mina. And I was like, oh, the woman who he, like, hypnotized into being his slave and turned into a vampire in the actual Dracula book. They're trying to set this up like a romance now. Kind of fucking insulting when you think about it. When you think about the actual, like, what Dracula actually does to people, the moment you try and turn that into something romantic, it's like, shame on you. Boo this film. Boo this film.
I think the thing that like really gets me is like he pretty much did all of this for his kid, and in the end he pretty much destroyed everything and everyone except his kid. So it's like, yay, I saved you, but your kid has no future now.
I was about to say, that kid's gonna be fucked up.
Yeah.
That kid ain't making it out. But at the same time, I was like, I don't care, because fuck that kid. Like I said, that kid's entire role in this film is, no, Mama, no! This was so fucking bad. And the thing is, it didn't even start off that bad, and it actually made me look at it and go, God damn it, man, this actually could be cool. Because like I said, no one's done the origin story of Dracula. But Universal doesn't have the fucking guts to do an origin story of Dracula. Because Dracula is the king of monsters. He is the embodiment of evil. He is the devil made flesh. That is what he is. He is the most evil of them all. And instead what they did is they made him the guy who is so pure of heart, he committed evil only to do more good for his family. And I was like, no one wants that. Ever. At all. And it's more insulting that we just got done watching the Netflix Castlevania show, and that one, in the first 5 fucking minutes of it, does a Dracula with a heart story better than the entirety of this movie.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they're not trying to make Dracula something it isn't. Instead, they embrace what Dracula is, and then, like, play into that to give him a love interest, and it makes us go, oh, Dracula can be something other than evil. He can be better. And then mankind fucks him over, and it's like, oh, no. Oh, no. Plus, it doesn't help that in that Castlevania show, they also do the Bat Tornado in there, and it looks so much better and so much cooler. In that, they just use the Bat Tornado to form his face in the sky as he gives commands to all his monsters. Like, that's pretty much the only thing that Bat Tornado could do to look cool. You can't make a Bat Tornado fist. It doesn't work. But it does make me look at this and like, if you had the guts to do the origin of Dracula, you could do some cool stuff. Like, this thing opens up with him talking about like, oh yes, the child was whipped and beaten until he was turned into a soldier. It's like, okay, start with that. Start with he was like given up to this army by his father, but like make it something more where like his mother like died in childbirth and his mother was homeless and like so he was just raised on the street from an infant and the army just abducted him and then like they beat him and tortured him along with other child soldiers until he just went nuts and killed all the other child soldiers. Like, show me a little kid, like, just drenched in blood, and like, and like, oh, that kid's gonna be Dracula. That kid is gonna grow to be Dracula. Instead, it's like, no, this is a man who only was forced to do bad things because he had no other choice. But now he's redeemed himself and he's found love. It's like, no, fuck all that shit. Fuck all that. Make this a thing about someone who is like a demon warrior who was raised only with rage in his heart. And hey, everybody outside, there's fights going on outside. I kind of want to see what that is. I've never heard someone yell that loud outside.
Now that's your new Dracula right there.
Yeah, that's him. Let's go cast that guy. But no, it's one of those things where but like, show me some guy who's like, he was raised just to be a monster. He was raised only with rage in his heart. He just wants to murder all the people who have forced him to be a soldier. And he like dies on the battlefield until Satan himself brings him back and goes, I will give you some of my power. And all I ask is you get revenge. And then like the rest of this film is just a fucking revenge film to the point where you feel scared for the people who tortured him as a kid. Like, get it to the point in which you're like, oh, don't kill that warlord because you're even worse, Dracula. Like, make this a guy who will just gladly burn all this down. Make this a guy who wants to rule, not so that he can have a peaceful kingdom where everyone lives in happiness, but because he's like, no, I was in the dirt. I'm gonna be a king, and I don't care. I'm gonna destroy everything around me. Make this a thing where it's like, I mean, we always think of Dracula as having like that harem of like other like vampire chicks around him who are like his slaves. I look at this guy and I'm like, I can't imagine him ever like hooking up with another woman aside from his wife for 500 years. Like, it took him that long to finally get over that one true love who I love that much. No, make him a sociopath who just doesn't care. It's like, yeah, I'll get me a bunch of women around as a vampire harem because I'm that fucking evil. Like, make this guy an evil madman and make it a hard R. Make it a hard R rating. Because, like, again, we just saw the Netflix Castlevania. That's a fucking video game where you just have like where you're fighting Frankenstein with a whip and they made it hard R.
Yeah, the problem, one of the things that pissed me off about this movie is like the lack of blood. Like anytime like Vlad like bit into someone, you didn't see any blood.
He
You didn't even
people's arms off and somehow the wound is already cauterized. Like, he cuts people's hands off and they're just there like, no, like, yeah, just a nub, and like they don't care. Like, no, there's no blood or anything.
And it's like, and when he bites
Black
someone,
Knight
there's
and Monty Python bled more when he got cut.
honestly, that was exactly what I was thinking of when he cut off his arms. Like, oh, it is just a flesh wound. But yeah, it's like when he bites his wife, you don't even see like the teeth marks in her neck.
No, none at all. Oh god, we didn't even talk about Renfield in this thing.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that was the other thing that made me, like, in that moment, like when he was drinking blood, that was the moment that made me go, you can't do PG-13 Dracula. Dracula,
No.
his whole thing is blood.
Yeah.
You can't show blood unless it's in an R-rated film. I'm sorry, dude. If you're doing Dracula, it needs to be a hard R-rated film. So they just, oh god. But also, like, I can't remember if this is exactly his name, but in the Dracula novel, there is that guy Renfield who was like just a regular guy who Dracula then hypnotizes into being his slave and basically being this little toady, like, yes, master, oh, yes, and he's eating bugs and all this stuff. In here, Dracula's just walking through the woods one night after he gets his first, like, craving for blood. He's like, oh no, I must fight, and just walks out in the woods like, okay, I can make it through these next 3 days. And then this little wormy, toady guy who looks like Jack Sparrow just comes out of nowhere. And he just comes in there, it's like, oh, yes, oh, I didn't follow you, I followed them. And he points up at all these bats circling around, and they're like, you just walk around aimlessly until you see bats and then you start following them. It's like, yeah, with his slaves in like the books and every other incarnation, it's someone he turned into a slave. It makes him kind of a tragic figure. This is some random dude who just showed up and he's holding a cup full of blood. Already, he goes, here, drink this.
Like, he cut himself and he bleeds into the cup.
Oh, I didn't miss that. Okay.
Yeah, but he's basically like a vampire a fanboy.
A groupie. He's a vampire
exactly.
groupie.
He's like, please let me serve you, master.
He literally just wanders the countryside waiting to find vampires.
Yeah.
He's like those people, you described it perfectly. You say he's like those people who hope they get abducted by UFOs.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, man, that's what he is. And he comes out of fucking nowhere because they had no idea how to introduce it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I said, all of his servants in like every other incarnation, they're tragic figures because they've been hypnotized into being his slaves. But no, that would make him a bad guy. And you have to root for Dracula in this one. He's going to be on your kids' action figures and on their lunchboxes and in their pajamas. Everybody's going to want to be part of Dracula. It's like, no, they need to be scared of Dracula. It's the entire freaking point of Dracula.
And Renfield was the one who revived him after he sacrificed himself to save his kid.
Tries to sacrifice himself, and then that guy just shows up out of nowhere and drops blood in his mouth. Like, okay. This is so stupid.
I don't know if someone resurrected me to a life of eternity and damnation, I'm like, fuck you, I want to die.
Well, that was the other question that I raised. He killed himself by just walking into sunlight. Okay, if you want to do that, just walk the fuck back out in the sunlight. Like, it's not like that was the last sunlight for 500 years. One's coming around tomorrow, buddy.
I like to imagine, like, Renfield just, like, kept following him around, giving him blood every time he dies. Like, oh, god damn it.
Until eventually he just got too tired. My servants never die. Fucking mercy res. Alright, oh my god. Yeah, this was bad. I watched this not because I thought it might be scary or anything, or especially not because I thought it might be good, but because I am working on a project that has to do with Universal and all their monster films, and let's just say if you guys were a fan of that Let's Relaunch Marvel thing that I did not long ago, you will look forward to that. But I had to watch this one for research. I had to know how they fucked this up too, and boy did they. So yes, thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, we're doing this every single day this week. So if you want to see the rest of our THORGIWEEN videos, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time.
Bye.
Blah.
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 I don't go blah, 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 blah.
You know you fucked up when Hotel Transylvania has a better vampire than you do.